Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ocean Expert Exchange. Scientists in every Florida school and the ANGARI Foundation are excited to have you join us again for our live webinar series on ocean science and technology experts. This month's monthly series, we dive into all things marine science and explore what's happening in the field, interesting careers, and more. Today, we are speaking with Dr. Barbara Brunnick of the Terrace Oceanographic Foundation, who will share her efforts to study and conserve Florida's dolphin populations with us today. Before we get right into that, though, we want to tell you quickly a little bit about our programs. The Scientist in Every Florida School program is a free program housed within the Thompson Earth Systems Institute at the University of Florida. We have a mission at CEFS to engage Florida K-12 teachers and scientists in cutting-edge research by providing science role models and experiences like today that we hope will inspire future stewards of our planet. The ANGARI Foundation is a nonprofit headquartered in West Palm Beach, Florida, and the foundation supports and promotes marine science research and education. And many of its the foundation's primary initiatives involve the 65-foot research vessel that they have there called RV ANGARI. In case you've missed any of our information in today's preview slides, we'll just like to remind you that you can submit your questions for our scientist by typing them in the chat box. And we will also be asking you to provide some feedback via a survey at the end of today's presentation. And we really appreciate your taking part in that. At this time, I'd like to introduce to everyone Dr. Barbara Brunnick, who will tell us a little bit more about herself, her work, and its importance. So Dr. Brunnick, I'm going to stop share at this time and allow you to take over from here.
Okay. Hello, I'm Dr. Brunnick. I've studied dolphins my whole life. I met a dolphin when I was a little girl and I just couldn't get over it. So I have followed that passion consistently through my life. Oh, there I am. Now I can see you. Okay, so in the process of studying dolphins, I've gone from Canada to Mexico to Portugal to Australia, everywhere to look for the dolphins and see what I can find out. When I was younger, I went to Marineland and fed the bubbles, the pilot whale. I went to Hawaii to Maui and I saw this skeleton that just recently was destroyed. It had been there for a long time. And I started working on a whale watch boat in Southern California, where we would take people out to see the gray whales every winter. After a while, I finally decided that I was going to be more than just a whale watcher and become a dolphin scientist. Some friends and I went to Canada and we got the first underwater film of orcas in the wild. We went to go swim with orcas for the summer. And we did that just because we could. And we didn't have anybody telling us we could. We had a lot of people telling us we couldn't, but we did anyway. I studied at the University of Santa Cruz, where I learned to train dolphins. We captured 2 dolphins in the Gulf of Mexico and kept them in captivity for a few years, and then put them back to see if they would go back to their families and how they adjusted back into the wild. And what we found was they went back to the exact animals they were with when they were captured. And it showed us just how strong those relationships are. And the 2 that were together, we thought maybe they would bond, but no, they're very different animals and they never went near each other again. Anyway, after studying dolphins in the Bahamas for my PhD, I was studying them underwater and watching their behavior. And now for the last 20 years, I've been studying dolphins here in Palm Beach County. Let's see, it's called the Palm Beach Dolphin Project. And this is what it is all about. This is what we try to do. When we go out and see the dolphins, we find the dolphins. We go on a survey from one point to another. And if we find them, we go towards them and usually they will settle down and stay around us once they know we're not going to run over them. And they let us look at them. We start our studies in Jupiter or in Palm Beach, and we move from inlet to inlet in one survey. So each time we do that, we check the environment, we take environmental information, and if we see any dolphins, that would be an encounter. And we put a star on the map for all the encounters. And I also work as a cartographer, so I did a little underwater mapping to see what it was like under there. What are they looking at? What kind of environment are they in? And it turns out that 90% of the dolphin sightings we saw were over the sand. As a coastal dolphin population, it's part of us. It's part of the definition of coastal bottlenose dolphin. So we do have dolphins here. And
Dr. Brunnick, we're actually not seeing your slides at the moment. Could you go
Not seeing
ahead
my
and try
slide.
the screen share?
Screen share again. I thought that worked. Wow, you're missing all those pretty
Let's
pictures.
see.
You were watching me? Oh, man.
There we are. Okay, better now. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go back a slide and say when we find this is a Palm Beach. Go back to because it makes sense. Okay, so we start in Palm Beach Inlet, and when we go to Jupiter Inlet, that would be one survey and back. And we take all the information for each of those spots. And then we put the information where the dolphins were, and we map out the underwater, and it looks like all the dolphins are in the area between the reefs and shore, which is a sandy area. And coastal bottlenose dolphins require a sandy area. Now, a lot of government people were telling me they weren't there. After we did a little GIS work on it, which is Global Information Sciences, we mapped out where they would be most of the time. So we found where the hot spots were for the dolphins. Then after time, well, while we're watching, when we go out to see them, what we're looking for are their dorsal fins, because that's really all we can see. When we find the dolphins, we try to get a picture of that dorsal fin. And that dorsal fin is made out of the same thing as your ears. It's cartilage. And dolphins like to wrestle, but since they don't have any hands, they bite at each other. They wrestle and they grab each other with their mouths, and they get rips and tears in their dorsal fin. So that's how we can tell them apart. And my recent students have discovered that we have an actual family that lives here 100% of the time. And these are the ones. These are my friends. These are who I see almost every time I go out. However, there is a large group who aren't these guys. We have, well, here's one that is. This is Bottle. This is an 09. And here she is with her brand new baby. You see that little baby? It's just a brand new baby. That baby is just the right size for a shark bite. That's what the sharks are after. Sharks don't want to get at dolphins because they're too smart and they have friends. But a little baby like that would be very hard to resist. But moms are very, very good. So Bottle, being a good mom, raised that baby. Here she is 9 years later with another baby. And here's that baby, the first one. And here's the shark bite from when the shark tried to eat it. Most of the moms in our population have shark bites, but they survive. And we have very few babies being lost to sharks. Also, so in the population, we have residents and we have part-timers. This is the group that come for a few months every year or every other year. We're going to go visit grandma this summer, and they come down to Palm Beach and stay for a few months. And that's that group. And then there's a third group, which is the tourists. And there's like 600 dolphins in that group. There's 600 dolphins have gone by, and we've seen them all just once. But every once in a while, a tourist will come back and join our group. There are different ways each gender works in the population, and these are generalities, but they're easy to look for. So it's some of the things we study. For example, motherhood. When a dolphin becomes a mom, she no longer hangs out with her old friends. Instead, she hangs out with other females that are also new moms. If she has a 1-year-old, her friends have a 1-year-old. She will spend 18 months nursing that baby and teaching it to be a good citizen and teaching it to find food and make friends and all of these good things. So they stay an extra few months with mom. One of the things is finding food. Dolphins do this with sound, and moms show them how to find find eels in the sand, and then they practice. And here you can see the mother is showing this baby dolphin how to find the food in the sand. She is, see her forehead and her nose are moving over. She's sending sound into the sand to find the food. Other fish are running away too. But as she finds it, her head twirls around, there it is. She will, and the baby has lost interest. He's like, what are you doing? I don't care. But mom is still there. She finds it. She eats it. She shows it to us because they're proud of what they caught. And now it's baby's time to try. So here comes baby down. Let's find a fish. Now look for him. Here's one. I found one. I got it. Oh, what's the name? I went the wrong way. Where did it go? Oh no, oh, there it goes. I lost it. Mom is the one who's actually eating here because baby's nursing. She goes around, she'll find it, show us the eel that was there. And it was a good catch, but baby needs a little more practice. Another thing mom has to do is discipline the dolphins. It's important to get along in society. I don't know what the rules are, but they are. But you have to, in a close society, you need to know how to work as a group. So mothers have ways of keeping their youngsters alive. This is Mel. Mel had a squeaky little squeak that he made, and you could hear it forever. And he'd run around squeaking, and running around like this and snapping at other adults, biting their tails, just a naughty dolphin. So what do you do with a naughty dolphin? Well, mom comes in, takes that dolphin and says, Mel, come with me, and puts her on the bottom and stay there. And I want you to think about your behavior. Now lie down. Think about your behavior. Lie down. Okay, she's using her sound to direct the baby as well. We can't hear it. She didn't think about what you did. You're going to do better now. Think about it. And then when she figures you've had enough time out, she'll pat you on the head. There's a pat on the head. And now they're going to rub their pectoral fins, which is like their arms. And that's the equivalent of a hug. That means I love you and I'm glad you're still here. Moms and babies are together for the first 18 months, but after that, they stay together a bit longer. As you can see here, moms and babies for the first from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, they're with their mom a lot. But then when a 2-year-old babies, females leave their mom and they go get a job taking care of babies as a babysitter, or maybe as a nursery school, start a nursery school. The males spend an extra couple of years with mom, learning how to be a good citizen. The females, when they're out and about, they take care of the other females. Here's a baby giving a pregnant mother a belly rub. They do babysitting instructors. They instruct. They also get instruction, so they learn and they make friends. The boys, when they are in the play groups, when they're with their mom, they make a best friend. And that best friend will play sports together and they'll share their lunches together. And when they get older, they'll go look for girls and go on dates together, and they're together forever. And it's a very long friendship. And when those two friends join up with others that are bonded, they become a team and they do these sports. And a lot of it's called a coalition when you have more than two groups of two alliances. Here we go. This is when we first saw this behavior, my colleagues were saying this is aggression. These are all young males and they do this head-to-head thing. That's aggressive. Their mouths are open and they're making a popping sound. But you can see here is that they have decided they're going to blow bubbles. These are all aggression signs. And then here they go, and whatever that is. The reason I know it's sports is because the old guys, the oldest, are here on the side watching them play sports. So it's the guy, old guard on the side. The younger ones are playing the sports. And the babies, occasionally a young baby will try to get in there and moms will pull them out. So it's a practice for fighting, but it's all in play. Eventually, this group of dolphins might meet with another group from a nearby village or somewhere, and they have like intramural sports. This involves a different degree of understanding. You're my friend today, then you're my enemy. So how they do that just shows that they're smarter than your average bear. When they're grown up, the males leave home and go up and down the coast looking from village to village for the prettiest girls or maybe the best sports team. I don't know. These are some of the things that we're working at right here at Palm Beach at the Palm Beach Dolphins. If you're in town, look up Palm Beach Dolphin Tours and come on out with us. We'll show you what dolphins look like when they're in the wild, in the environment that they should be seen in. And I think that's the end of my talk. So I'm ready, open for questions if anybody has any.
Absolutely. Dr. Brunnick, thank you so much for sharing your expertise on dolphins with us. We really enjoyed the opportunity to learn from you. As you mentioned, we're now going to go ahead and transition over to our question and answer part of today's presentation.
Okay.
So I want to remind our audience, those of our attendees joining us today, if anyone has any questions, please type them in the chat box and I can ask them on your behalf. Our first question is from Emily, who wants to know if different species of dolphins will mate with one another.
Well, they do, because they like everybody. They don't really have any criteria. They like everybody. They do not, mating and implies that they're making babies. Hybrid babies are rare because it's not necessary. In places where blue whales could not find any mates, they mated successfully with finbacks, but we're not sure if those offspring are viable. Dolphins in captivity have made babies with other species, but they were not able to have babies. They're like mules. So they will investigate. They all try. It isn't very successful most of the time. But dolphins seem to be able to communicate with other species of dolphins very easily. That alone is something to take pause, because we don't speak to other species yet, and they've got it down enough to be friends.
Kristen is wondering if you are studying bottlenose, spotted dolphins, or both.
In our area, we have both bottlenose and spotted dolphins. I did my thesis on spotted dolphins underwater in the Bahamas, where you're allowed to swim with the dolphins. Here, we're not allowed to get in the water, so there's no direct underwater observations. We do have a camera that we have on a pole on the back of the boat, but it's not quite the same. This footage is from the Bahamas. However, we do have both spotted and bottlenose here in Palm Beach.
Excellent, thank you. Next, we have Samantha, who asks, how many dolphins are in your database?
My database right now has 684, I think. No, yes. 584 of them are tourists, and the other 100 are locals or part-time residents. Part-time means they're here at least 1/4 of the year, every year. But so there's like 100 dolphins that are here all the time. It's interesting. In my encounters, I am more likely to see the locals than the tourists, but there are a lot more tourists out there than locals. So
Fascinating. Wow.
And where the tourists are going, I don't know.
Sure. Jessica wonders how dolphins are similar to whales. We were hoping you could tell us a little bit about any similarities that they have.
Okay, dolphins and whales are both from the same, they're the odontocetes. They're cetaceans. They're from the Greek sete. There are two types of cetaceans. There's the mysticete, or the mustache whales, and that would be your right whale and your bowhead, and they have hair-like stuff hanging from the roof of their mouth, and they use that to strain out food, and that hair looks like hair. It's called baleen, but old whalers thought it was hair, so it was a mustache. So those were the mustache whales, the mysticetes. And all of the others, the ones that have teeth, are called odontocetes. And that's the dolphins and the orcas and the pilot whales and the narwhal. And there's, I think, 53 different species of odontocetes. They are very similar in that they have accomplished adapting to the environment, which is a very harsh environment. The ocean is a very harsh environment. They all are mammals. Their brains are just like ours, but much larger. Even if you take in body weight comparison, they still have more going on. But they're extraordinarily similar. The difference is, though, the odontocetes, they use echolocation much more. They're faster, they swim around more, they're fun. Bigger whales can't move that fast. Their sound is more, they can talk across any ocean, so they have very low sounds. But other than that, they're the same thing. A dolphin is a whale. An orca is a dolphin, really. They're both from the same family of delphinids.
Very interesting. Rosanna would like to know, how deep is the sandy area that you study when you showed us on the map earlier?
So she wants to know how deep the water is, and that's interesting. Coastal bottlenose dolphins in the literature are known to stay at about 35 feet of water. So my survey is at 35 feet. The deepest that they have taken me to is 80 feet. And at 80 to 100, that's when we have reef. There's a very popular reef to dive on just right there. So the water goes from 30 to 60 feet mostly. It's like a swimming pool. The bottom is white sand. The water is very clear.
Thank you. Fatal wants to know, how long do dolphins live?
How long do dolphins live? Well, in captivity, they give you a story. I don't know. In the wild, we're told they live 30 years, but that's not really true. You have to look at it in what they're going through. They have a very high infant mortality, and that is because many of the toxins that we have thrown into the ocean have ended up in the bodies of these dolphins. And the females are allowed to dump a lot of it into their firstborn, and their firstborn will die. So that raises the mortality rates a little higher. If you take that out, the dolphins live 60 to 80 years. And we still have a 60-year-old female that's having babies. So they live like pretty much similar to ours. So much similar to ours. That's why I'm giving you this presentation.
Jessica wants to know, how fast can dolphins swim?
They can swim very fast. They can go up to like 40 knots maybe, but what they don't, because if they were to do that, then they would have to eat more fish. A bottlenose dolphin has to eat the equivalent of a 10-ounce fish every hour. That's 3 quarter-pounders every hour. So that's a lot of fishing. And that's just to swim normally. If I'm going to swim faster, I'm going to have to find more fish. And it's a budget thing. So bottlenose dolphins are very keen on that budget and don't do a lot of fast swimming and jumping. Spotted dolphins, on the other hand, they swim very far and very fast, and faster than any boat because they love to bow ride. So just not for a long time.
Cool. Several folks are wondering how long a dolphin can stay underwater without surfacing for air.
How long they can stay underwater. Typically, they will go down for about 20 seconds, come and breathe, stay down 20 seconds, come and breathe, stay down 20 seconds, do that. And then the next time they'll go down and stay down for 2 minutes. That's normal, average, everyday life. 3 short dives, a deep dive, 3 short dives, a deep dive. And so that's normal, but they can stay underwater for 15 minutes would be a long time. But I've known I've seen them stay underwater for an hour or more, but it was in captivity and it was a certain circumstance. But 15 minutes is a pretty good time.
Oh, wow. Reese wants to know, when is the best time of year to see dolphins?
When is the best time of year to see dolphins? Depends on where you are. First of all, winter in the north is cold and dolphins don't like cold. Here in South Florida, where we don't have a lot of seasons, instead of mostly bottlenose dolphins will have babies in the spring, like most animals. But here it's spring all the time. So we have babies all year. The best time to go see dolphins is when the waters are calmer and the seas are down and it's comfortable. And that's any time of year. There's a lot of it here in the summer. We usually have good weather, but I can't predict that. That's always the case. So best time is when the weather is complimentary. I've had wonderful encounters both in January, July, doesn't matter.
Right. And we have a follow-up question, actually. Samantha's wondering, are there places where you can spot dolphins from land, whether it's a lagoon or a beach?
You can see from land. Well, on the west coast of Florida, for sure, go to Sarasota or to Fort Myers, in that area, you can see dolphins from shore anytime. Here, you have to be looking and they have to be there, and it's rare. These are, for so many years, people told me there were no dolphins here. I could go out every day, I would never see dolphins. It's because you have to look. And these dolphins are very they're there. I don't know why people can't see them. I see them go right up to shore and the people on the beach don't see them. So, but I couldn't tell you a place here, which would be a good place to look for them. Jupiter's, I have a friend with that, we have a drone. And when we use drone pilots, it's from Jupiter and we usually find them there, but it's with a drone.
We have another viewer who's wondering, how frequently do you do your photo ID? I'm sorry. A viewer wonders how frequently you do your photo ID survey.
We do a survey at least once a week. If we have people and the energy, we can do 3 a week, but it requires more people.
Okay.
So we have one tour, we try to average 1 a week. And when we get in from the trip, I sit down and sort the slides, and then I have interns that sort the whole bunch. I find out who was there, and then interns take them and divide them up. So I have lots of people here looking at pictures of dolphins.
Great.
Most of the time.
Jessica wants to know, why do dolphins mass strand?
Say, why do dolphins
mass strand?
mass strand? Some species do that more often than others, like pilot whales, or if you see one pilot whale, if they see one pilot whale, they're going to go for it. So if one pilot whale has a headache and goes ashore, the whole population is going to follow it in. And you cannot convince them otherwise until they see that that dolphin is dead. They're not going to leave it. Other dolphins, many of them will not stay close to their buddies, and they don't strand in mass. Usually, because when a dolphin comes ashore, it is not healthy. It's got less than 1% chance of surviving. They do not come ashore for any other reason except they really, really need to rest, and that's bad. Very few of them have ever been successfully rescued at that point, and they'd have to be very young. So, but the mass stranding, it's just certain species that cannot leave a comrade in need. It's an interesting thing. We don't know a lot about it. There's a lot of marine mammal science is new. It didn't exist when I was a little girl. When I met a dolphin and I wanted to study dolphins, people said, yeah, well, you can be a technician or something. That there was no whale or dolphin science. So we're still learning. There's so much to learn. Pilot whales are a good example.
James asks if pods ever consist of more than one species.
Well, they can, especially the spotteds and the bottlenose here are together. I see moms, 2 females, 2 baby, one's a spotted cow and calf and a bottlenose cow and calf. They're together. They have the same energy needs. They're foraging together. And I've seen young males, bottlenose, try to keep up with the spotteds. It's kind of funny, but yeah, they swim together. I have seen them argue and compete for resources, which is serious business. When that game that you saw becomes fighting, I have seen spotted and bottlenose actually get at it over access to feeding grounds, because we overfished an area and dolphins need their fish. So they go and find it wherever they can, sometimes take it from someone else.
How many different species of dolphins are there?
I believe dolphins, I think there's 40, 42, something like that. The real number, I'm not real sure on the top of my head. It's around 42 different species of dolphins. And then there's another 10 or 12 species of odontocetes, like a narwhal or a beluga. Those are not dolphins. Those are odontocetes. Well, the humpback whale, or the sperm whale also, that's a toothed whale, but it's not a dolphin. So there's about 42 different types of dolphins.
Thank you. Sarah heard that pods are often dominantly female or male. Is this true, and why is that the case?
That is true, because the females spend their time with other females that are in the same reproductive state, and they have a baby every 2 or 3 years, depending on whether it's a male or female, and I guess 3 or 4 years. And so every time they have a baby, their social environment changes. And by the time they're an adult, they know everybody, and they are all raising the babies together. The males are looking for sports, I guess. Haven't quite figured that out. There are no, they do not mate for life. Some males come and stay in the village. So we have some males there, but it's pretty much a matriarchal group. There's usually one or two males that are there all the time that if they slap their tail, everybody comes. So a matriarch, sometimes there's a male in there that has that status. Which one's in charge depends on who's there, like here.
Several folks would like to know how large dolphins get and how big baby dolphins are.
This is interesting. Just bottlenose, there's such a range. Bottlenose here are about 7 feet long, weigh about 700 pounds. In the Pacific, they're 6 feet and 600 pounds. In Scotland, they're 12 feet and 1,200 pounds. So they got the range. You've got your jockey and your basketball player all in one species. So there's a range within every species. And then there are some species like an orca is 30 feet, 20, 28 feet. There are very small ones. A vaquita is only 3.5, 4 feet. Baby dolphins are about 18 inches long, maybe 20, just under 2 feet long when they're born. They grow pretty quick though. And so a baby vaquita is probably a foot long. I would love to see one of those. They're very, very endangered. And I've seen them in the wild, but that was when I was very young and I didn't appreciate it as much as I would now.
Stacy wants to know, at what age does a dolphin have a baby?
They are mature at 8 years old. That's when the boys go on their walk around and leave town, and that's when the girls start having babies.
Wow. Christine asks, how dolphins talk? Do they have their own language?
Oh, this is also interesting. They have 3 different sounds that they do. They have their echolocation where they send out sound and hear it back. They do everything with that. That's their vision. Everything you do with your eyes, they do with echolocation. So that's what you hear when you hear those are echolocation clicks. It starts really far apart, like click, 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 and they get closer together. They become a zzz. And that's just them examining the environment. They also have a whistle, which is their name. If it were me, I'd be walking around going, Barbara, Barbara. And every once in a while I'd say Stefan, because that's my husband. So their best friend gets in there. So they'd be walking around saying, I'm Barbara, I'm Barbara, I'm the Barbara that hangs with Stefan, I'm Barbara. So that's their own special whistle. It's something that an infant creates when it's in utero, they're born, they have a whistle, and often it's very close to their mom's best friend's whistle. In captivity, it sounds like a trainer's whistle, which is kind of sad. The last bit of noise they make is their language. They do talk to each other. It's above our sound hearing. It's very hard to record. It takes very expensive equipment to take in a very harsh environment to record it, but I have done so. And there is a great deal going on outside of our hearing, above our hearing. And that's where they talk to each other. So there's so much more to learn.
And how does that communication differ among types of dolphins, if at all?
Well, I think that originally there were river dolphins that lived in like the Amazon. And when the Amazon floods, the dolphins would go into the forest. And I think they had the ability to communicate and navigate because they're never left in the forest. They always found their way back to the river. As they eventually moved to the ocean and became these other species, I think that ability allows them to create relationships over long periods and over long distances. But that gives them more of a range on these communication things. And I don't think there's much other than that. I think river dolphins are limited, but they're blind and they don't go in the ocean. So they don't have as much to talk about, I don't think. Maybe they do. Probably more.
Juniper and Stacy would like to know how dolphins sleep.
Oh, I love this question. Dolphins are, when you go swimming, right before you get in the water, you go, and you hold your breath, and then you swim and you get out and you exhale. You are thinking while you're breathing. Dolphins have to do that all the time, 24/7. They have to be conscious of every breath because you can't breathe underwater. That would be bad. So that means they can't really go to sleep, because if they were unconscious, they might drown. So instead, they have perfected what every student I've ever met would like to be able to do and tries. But they literally, and I mean this literally, turn off all the electrical activity on one half of their brain. So they have one eye open and one half of their brain is closed. They often have a best friend, and the other friend will have the other side of their brain closed. Together they've got one working brain. I don't know, but they do that for a minute or two every hour on each side. We call it logging. You can see them. They just kind of sit at the surface and just sit there doing nothing. The longest I've seen was a mom. It was a female. She was there for an hour and she had her older calf with her. And the next time I saw her, she had a baby. So she's probably in labor. So I give her a pass. Tourists don't want to see a sleeping dolphin. It's boring. But yeah, that's how they sleep. So they sleep one half of their brain at a time for several seconds every hour. And then that means that they are hunting and socializing 24 hours.
Rosanna has heard that dolphins are accumulating toxins in their fat and that it is showing up in their milk and impacting their young.
Yes.
Please wonder if this is something you're familiar with.
Absolutely. I mentioned it earlier. Every female calf dumps her toxins into her firstborn in her milk. Many of them, they push that baby around trying to make it breathe. They just cannot compute what happened. After that, she has another baby. That baby is clean. Mom's clean. All's good. Males do not have an opportunity to dump the toxins, so they don't live as long as females do. And these toxins are the ones, maybe you've heard of DDT. That's from the 60s and the 50s. That is still used some places, but it's in the ocean. It's still there. The things that we put on clothing to make them fire retardant, those chemicals are persistent chemicals. They're in the ocean and they're in the accumulated at the top of the pyramid. Poisons go up the pyramid, and the animal at the top of the trophic pyramid, which is the dolphin, and humans are the ones that are accumulating all of the toxins in the system below. Dolphins just have this, they're showing us what could happen to us. So you imagine if we have to tell every female in the world that her first baby is just going to die. I don't think we'd be very happy. And this was not true when I was a little girl. When I first started dolphins, firstborn were fine. It's a new process, but it is worldwide. They have less than 5% chance of survival.
We have time for just a few more questions. Our next one is from Samantha, who asks if you collaborate with other photo ID groups around the state.
We have a national database for for dolphin pictures. I don't know how I send pictures there. I don't know if they ever get uploaded because it's all funding. But I also work with there's a group of dolphins that live in the intercoastal waterway. They never go in the ocean. They are genetically distinct from the dolphins I study, but sometimes I see their animals in the intercoastal, so we communicate. The other dolphins nearby are in Georgia or down in Biscayne. Those are dolphins in a bay. We are the only ones studying dolphins in the ocean. They're in bays or estuaries. But I think it's in 6 months, we have a plan to compare notes. We need interns who want to come and do some projects to compare the dolphin catalogs to see if some of my tourists are actually locals down in Lauderdale, maybe, or Miami, maybe even in the Gulf. Randy Wells is a good friend of mine. We went to school together. He works in Sarasota, so we're communicating. I talk to my colleagues a lot, grew up together. It's kind of we're a bizarre group, the old guard.
Speaking of school, Scarlett would like to know, what college majors would you recommend if someone wants to study marine mammals for a career?
I would recommend biology, and I would take GIS. There are a great deal of people who, in my area, who study psychology because they're studying behavior, but there's others studying more the chemistry and the biology and the ecology. Those are the classes to take. Biology, I'm a biology major, and when I was doing this and it was a new science, a little girl coming up wanting to study dolphins was not going to get anywhere. So I had to get the degree in the hardest way I could, and that was biology for me. So I did it so I can be here, proving myself. But it has helped. Writing, be a good writer. We're always looking for someone to write. Statistics, but that's just, everybody has to take statistics. Any more questions?
I believe that's it for now. So
Good.
I just want to thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, to learn from you, and just to engage in this conversation with you. We really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. And one more time, I just want to thank you again. At this time, I'm going to turn things over to Stephanie to wrap up today's event.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks everyone for joining us today. And a huge special thank you to Dr. Brunnick. What a great and amazing presentation. Thank you for taking the time to share with us about your dolphins and your research. If you have time, we'd like for you to take a look at our K-12 extension resources today. They're a great connection to what you've just heard. And you can also see today's recording on our UF Earth Systems YouTube channel. Please take a moment to complete the attached survey link. It should be in the chat box for you now. And if you'd like any further information about the Scientist in Every Florida School program or the ANGARI Foundation, you can be sure to visit our websites and learn a lot about both programs. You can also follow us on social media. We have an exciting Ocean Expert Exchange lineup scheduled for this fall, and we hope to see you at one of our upcoming live streams. On October 26th, we'll be sharing some things with Sarah Casarito of Florida International University. She's going to be talking with us about varied roles of sharks and those roles they play in food webs. And then on November 30th, we will discuss the secrets of sargassum with Dr. Brian Lapointe of Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute at Florida Atlantic University. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today for today's live stream event. We hope you've had a wonderful time and enjoy the rest of your day. We look forward to seeing you at a future exchange. Bye, everyone.